seen the tearjerker headlines about a dog not being able to send Christmas cards? Or the desperate pleas of the poor, hard done by multimillionaires? All because of those mean postal workers who have the audacity to ask for better wages, since many of them have to use food banks. And they want pension protections and workplace health and safety concerns to be addressed. Wait, that doesn't sound mean. So why might I, the average news consumer, think the postal workers were the bad guys here? Well, let's talk about it. See, 55,000 postal workers across Canada have been striking since November 15th, asking for the stuff I mentioned a few seconds ago. Meanwhile, Canada Post, a crown corporation that has been struggling financially, is pushing to fix that by doing stuff like hiring more gig workers. I guess so they can better compete in the race to the bottom against companies like Amazon who treat their workers like this. But what really blew my mind in researching stories about this strike was the media coverage that I saw. While the straightforward coverage was fine, if a bit lacking in detail, nearly all of the additional coverage I saw on CBC News, Global News, and CTV News focused on the harm the strike was causing. I did a Google search of Canada Post strike limited to the last month of stories from each outlet and saw multiple stories of individuals and businesses hurt by the strike. But only one story, from CBC News, focused specifically on the workers themselves and what they had to say. Meanwhile, CBC, which published that one story, had so many stories on the way the strike is hurting small businesses that this video has at least 5 more related stories about how small businesses are hurting that you can check out. But the postal worker story, there were no related stories tagged. And that makes sense because based on my search, that was basically it. There were no profiles on the workers who have to go to food banks, who could be forced to spend 8 hours walking in freezing cold rather than the current 6. But there were multiple stories on people struggling because their documents were stuck in the mail, or telling kids how they can get their letters to Santa, and stories about people's mailed benefits, which failed to mention, as Ramneek's story for Press Progress did, that striking workers in some areas are volunteering their own time to make sure that people get their social assistance checks. It is wild to me that there were so many stories on the harm of the strike, but I struggled to find that level of humanization in the stories traditional media wrote about the workers who are hurting, despite the fact that a lot of the things they're pushing for actually help everyone. Like, I don't know about you, but I don't think we need more peeing in bottle gig jobs. And I do think workers should be paid fair wages. Workers demanding better helps all of us. It's the reason why we have things like maternity leave in this country. But hey, even if we all end up having to pee in bottles one day, at least we can sleep easy knowing the influencer dog's holiday cards made it in time. And surprise, despite the headline, the story goes on to say the dog actually supports the striking workers. So yeah, what do you think of all this?